Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Phil, the miniature model maker. Today, we are going to be doing some scribing and panel lining of our Rick Diaz. Hopefully, we're getting close to being done. I would like to get this going to the painting stage and get started on another mini. But I think this one's going to take a while. I did a bit of work off camera on scribing. That is a slow, detailed process. So it's worth the time, in my opinion, or the end results will be worth the time. However, a lot of people may not think that, or there may be some. We'll talk about some tips that you can look at and do to make your scribing efforts more fruitful. Maybe spend less time working on it all. You don't have to do every single line, every single panel join if you don't want to. That's your model. You do it how you want. But we will talk about that. Today's tools are my zero point 0.1 mil scriber, the pointed tip scriber, which I found this to be my best friend on one of these. It was much more useful than I had expected it to be originally. We've got the shade panel liner. We're going to be panel lining with it today, so we'll call it panel liner. And then also, I got the double-sided tape sponges that I mentioned in a previous video, and I'm actually going to give them a try right now. So we'll move the model out of screen, and these are the 3M 9448A double-coated tissue tape. It's got the same sponging that a lot of the poster boards do, the foam core poster boards. Um, and it is double-sided for double use. But right now, we're just going to take this one square and some 800, it's upside down, 800 grit sandpaper and pop it down. Get that on camera. Give it a good push. And then take my scriber. No, I'm kidding. I'm not going to use the scriber. That would be really dumb. Going to use the hobby knife. To just cut out around. Was that enough? Nope. Sometimes it takes two. I really should be using my cutting board instead of cutting up my cutting mat. And put that back. And now, because we will be doing detailed work with it, we'll put it on the cutting board / texture palette. If you guys saw the BattleTech painting video, this is not the best texture palette, but it works. And just taking it and detailing, cutting off the extra. There we go. Now this is actually pretty big. We'll give that a try first. And the cool thing about these, they're 2 inches long by about an inch there. For minis, you could easily cut this. Well, we could say easily. Let's try how easily. In theory, you should be able to just take your knife, slide it down, and get a nice little sanding stick. And let's take our foot. It's got a little bit of edge there. And make it there. And that works pretty nicely. And do I have I've got a rounded piece right over here. So we'll take this edge, because in theory, sanding sponges are supposed to be good for rounded areas. And gently sand that down. Yeah, this is a win, folks. If you need to make miniature size custom sanding sponges, this works really well. And then you can, when this wears out, plop that on or just do a different grit. Very cool. Happy to see that. Glad that worked out. All right, get our model back here on screen. There we go. So what happened since our last exciting episode? I did try some scribing. I also went back through with water and did some washing. That worked out pretty well. One thing I found when trying the scribing that I didn't quite expect was how gummy, how thick, depending on how thickly applied this homebrew panel liner mix is. Like when you see it in those deep dark corners in there, it gets a bit gummy and the scribing tool can stick a bit. So in the future, I'll either apply less or just come back through with some water and thin it out, because water reactivates all of the ingredients of the mix, the airbrush thinner, the flow improver, and the ink itself. And you can clean that up. So you can see I tossed this in the ultrasonic cleaner for 5 minutes with just plain dish soap and water. It came right off. There were a couple little sections that had some residual, tiny little bits of residual ink, but even in the cracks and crevices where I couldn't get a brush, it all just came right out. So that's a pretty cool tool that I will continue to use. So, all right, I have done some work on this, and I've done some work on this. We're going to put the rest of these parts to the side for now. And the first thing I'm going to do is see how well I did with my scribing. So this was my first attempt at scribing. Say on this side here, the inner edge of this leg, I think. Yep, the inner side of this leg. I went through at first with the 0.1 mil scriber, the chisel shaped one, and that worked pretty well. I mean, it's a high quality chisel as far as I know, scriber, and it did its job. However, when these really tiny little pieces and some of these really tiny little uh, lines, it was hard, and especially in the rounded areas or parts that in a larger model would be angled, but due to the size and molding of this were a little rounded. It didn't work as well, so I went on this other side and tried using the what do you want to call it? The stylus first, and that worked much better to make pilot lines that I will then go back through and use the regular scriber like we see here to deepen and even out the line. So that's what I did with this, and we're going to do our test. So I've got two brushes today, my handy dandy toothbrush, and then the cheap Amazon makeup brush. A lot of people swear by these for dry brushing. I like them for cleaning out the models. Okay, so let's get the cutting board back. That seemed to help a bit. Slightly less glare. And we're going to take our panel liner, see how well I did. So I think I did the better work on the outside, and it's not quite done. So we're going to start with the inside and wish me luck. And with a bit of luck, we'll get some nice capillary action going on. One problem I did find I had with scribing these is the joints between the panels were very difficult to clean. I don't know if that's due to the size of the model, just how I was doing it, or what. So let me know if you see this. Let me know. And that showed up. Let's try another one. That was some very satisfying capillary. Oh, yeah, that flows so much better. So if you're new to this, so you're coming from maybe the wargaming side of things, and you're a little bit not sold on the idea of panel lining as much or scribing as much, hopefully this will convince you that it is worth the effort. I'm not even sure if we can see it well. Yeah. Oh, all the way around. Boom. Look at that. So, from what I understand, that's a sign of good scribing. So, yay. That's a nice thing. What I did not do that some people do, and this sounds like a good idea to me, is use um, the thin cement in the lines first to thin out any burrs from um, the scribing itself, because it doesn't always go smoothly. And I think I went a bit too deep on these because I can barely see. That's going to be something that I'm going to need to figure out is how deep do I need to make these panel lines in order to prevent clogging when priming versus making them visible uh, as panel lines. Because, yeah, that's flowing right in, but it's hardly visible from the surface. It's showing up. I don't know. We'll see. We've got a lot of these to work on, and this is learning and experimentation, isn't it? That's part of the joy of hobbying. All right, now here's a really good panel line. Let's try that. Going to put that in the corner. And it's just flowing through. All right. I'm happy with that. And again, the bonus benefit of this particular mix is it's acrylic. You don't have to worry about um, problems with solvents or issues with that. If it's not working for you, just toss it in some water and dish soap. All right, so yeah, I think I did either make these too deep or do them at a bad angle for displaying the line. Gundam friends, please tell me at what angle and how I should do the scribing at the join of two panels. I had been going along the edge of the biggest one just to make it nice and even, but should I be going at, say, a 45-degree angle if the join is a 90? Should I be coming in at the 45 with the scriber to make a better visual impact? Oh, but already this is so much nicer than the first time I did the EXS. I think it was the trial on that. Yeah, that didn't get done well. And the good thing about doing this as a trial, you know what you got and what you didn't and what you need to go back and fix. See, like right there's not oh, well, kind of, sort of. I was going to say there was not a clean join between the two, and it didn't flow, but it did once it filled in. Man, this is so cool. I love watching those shorts of people who have done really intricate scribing and just put the panel liner in one place and it flows all the way through like a dam releasing water. That is just a neat thing for me. All right, did I do any? I did a little bit of work here. So let's see. Boop. Okay. And there. And then, oop, don't want that. Here. Here. I did not go on this downward side. It was just too difficult to see. And the rounded shape makes it rather hard for me. Yeah, there's a win on that leg. Now let's see some of these other parts that I have done. Okay, now this body I went through earlier just before stream and tried my stylus first, then the straight stray scriber to see how it would work. And for now, was only going over the molded lines, not any joins between panels, just to get practice and get my hand on it. In this section here, I did the little line here, these lines around that, and some around this section, and then here. I think I started trying between these parts just to be a little bit wild and crazy. I did not do these thicker. You can still see ink there. I want to try my, let's see, is the 0.2 thick enough? That's the 0.15, 0.2. And you folks new to scribing, that's something I've discovered, that it's a good idea before going in to test the thickness of your scriber versus the thickness of your line. Now that may sound like common sense, but a lot of videos out there say, okay, I use a 0.1, a 0.15, 0.2, and then they scribe away. Not mentioning that perhaps they've got a 0.25 or 0.3 and their model has a molded line that's 0.25 millimeters thick, and using that one scribing tool would get the whole thing, whereas with a 0.15, 0.2, because it's not as thick as the molded line, you would need to do multiple multiple scribes, and that can cause unevenness and issues. As this people who are really good at it make it look easy, especially in the bigger models where you can use guide tape. That's another thing with these artifacts. The space between, I mean, we're lucky here. This is a relatively, proportionally very large panel. But on something like this gun, where there's a millimeter, maybe two between lines, cutting the tape to that width, making your guide tape is nearly impossible. So these require a lot of freehand scribing, which is why I think, and I hope that my experimentation bears fruit, that the stylus scribing first to create your lines, and then using the straight scribe method would be good. It's going to take more time, but you get better results. So back to this one. We'll see how it goes. We'll just put some right here. And I'm having to hold it a bit because, yep, it was an uneven cut, uneven scribe. But that was pretty good. And we'll do this side here. Looks like there might be, yeah, it's not fully connected on that one. Again, folks, I'm not an expert at this. I'm still learning, just giving tips on things that I learn as I do it that might help you out or learn from other people's experience. You know, what's that saying? That's when I was a teacher, learning from experience is good, especially if it's somebody else's. Uh, Talking about learning from bad experiences, but yeah, that's pretty nice. Okay, so that worked out nicely. I'm going to Put these pieces back off to the side for cleaning and a little bit more detailing. So let's see, let's do something extra fun. That's got a lot of big. Yep, we're gonna bite the bullet and do the rifle. Okay. Put that down. And again, these little plastic sheaths for your brushes are fantastic covers for these scribes. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to try one thing while I'm here. My little jeweler's headset. Oh, well, how fancy is that? This will kind of help me see while we're on stream. No, no, it won't. Too many things on my head. All right. So looking here, we've got all of this, all these tiny, tiny little details in here, these tiny, tiny little lines that these look like they might be suitable for putting the straight scribe in, but I'm going to hold off on that, having experienced issues with it. And taking the expert's advice to heart, holding the scribe in a way that you're comfortable with, and letting the tool do the work, applying very, very, very little pressure, almost just letting it sit there on its own and guiding it down the line. And in this way, it's cleaning up the line as well. So as I go, I can feel it biting a little bit more and a little bit more each time. All right, so I've done about 5 in that direction. And we'll do 5 in this direction. 3, 4, 5. Just to keep our seam nice and even. Oh, and somebody messaged me. Oh, hey there, Chris. Thanks for coming back. Did Doggo Parago's walk go well? All right, and then this next line here. Aha, these are very slightly connected. Okay. Again, no pressure. Both on yourself and the scribe. Take it easy. It's plastic. We have gap fillers. If you scratch something, you can refill it and do it again. You can always repair plastic. You can always repair a paint job. And I may be going against conventional wisdom here by going back and forth in these tiny, tiny little pieces. At the moment, though, it's working. And again, the goal is to make a guide, make it easier to use the quote unquote proper scribe, the one that we're going to actually use to fill, not fill the holes, to make the holes. That being said, on these artifacts, this is doing a pretty darn good job of these. We'll call them detail lines instead of structural lines. You know, something along the lines of this between these two panels. Oh, I can't see. Here we go. This panel and this panel, I would say that gap, that's 0.2 or 0.3 mils thick. That would, to me, is a structural line versus these tiny little things along here that are details, just to provide visual texture and interest. You know, in a full-size model, those would be, if you're customizing, you'd use plot plate to make them. All right, there's enough of that one. We'll go back to this. That may have been a mistake. We'll see. Maybe it's not. Okay. One of the most challenging aspects of scribing these little things for me so far is how the line itself gets tiny bits of plastic in it. It makes it hard to smoothly move the scribe, to make sure to clean regularly, or else you risk hopping and stuttering, kind of like scratching an old vinyl record. All right, we'll try up here. Can you see? I think I'm holding it. Well, that's as good as we're going to get. All right, now I prefer to move left to right, so I'm going to hold it in that direction. Yeah. This one's gummed up. So we're extra careful now. Just cleaning out the ink, which is a nice little warm-up. And something I found while doing this too is if you're holding tension in your hand, you're probably pushing too hard. So just relax and let it go. I find myself holding my breath and gripping the scribe tightly while doing this. And that's when I start making mistakes and have things jumping out of its lane and scratching. And I did make some pretty decent scratches. So when you do that, take the chance to just set it down, roll a hand, clean your model, take a breath, and go back. Here we are. And okay, that's biting too much. So something else to keep in mind, if your scribe starts biting too much, it will stop. Okay, I gotta loosen up and not keep going there. All right, time for some neurosurgery. This tiny little. We want to do this tiny little divot. That's actually pretty good. No, we're gonna hold off on that. Let's you do these lines here. Yep, that's a big. Since they're joined, I'm going ahead and running it a few times there. But now we've got our little jobs. And for these straight lines, I find myself agreeing with the experts. Keep the scribe in the same position and change the angle and orientation of the piece you're scribing. So I'm going back through and making sure the connection between these is good. Just had a little bit of a hop there. That means I need to clean and back to it. Yeah. Okay. And I think today's stream is going to be kind of shorter than usual. We might go a little bit longer on here. This isn't this is something I need to concentrate on. It's not exactly great for chattering while streaming. I just want to give people tips and tricks. It's the old teacher in me coming out. Because, yeah, I'll repeat it again. There are some mind-bogglingly amazing Asian artifact builders, but there's not a lot of people. There aren't many people. There's not a lot of content out there in English for building these. A lot of shorts, a lot of unboxings, and that's great. You see one unboxing, you've seen it all. Should I do an unboxing? I've got series 3, or I've got some of these that I've opened the boxes, but I haven't opened the packaging. I did check them on Christmas when I got them to see which were the special colors. But yeah, the not much in the way of English language content really focused on the building and making of these as fully fledged models. So that's why I'm doing this. Because if I couldn't find it with all of my searching, then probably a lot of other people out there are having trouble finding it too. Especially now that Assemble has been announced. I'm seeing a bunch of videos. Oh, Warhammer's screwed. Games Workshop's fucked. Gundam Assemble is going to take it over. No, it's not. Not at all. GW has been around for a long time. Battletech has been around for a long time. Gundam has been around for an equally long time. Actually, I think Gundam's been around longer than all the others. It's older than my younger brother. No, no game, no company out there other than GW is going to take GW down. No game out there, no company other than Catalyst and I think Tops, who makes their models, I think, are going to take BattleTech down. Same thing with Gundam. No Gundam game is going to dethrone 40K or ruin, kill BattleTech or 40K or Sigma or any of the other GW games. I think it's going to add. I'm very hopeful about. I always want to say Artifact because that's what I've been focusing on. Assemble. I think it's going to be a really good thing for the miniatures hobby and the tabletop hobby as well if the rules are good. The Gundam folks have needed a mini range. It's time. Artifacts are awesome. I'm fallen head over heels in love with them. But for let's see, what was it, 79 the first Gundam came out? So a 48, 47-year-old robot combat IP to not have its own tabletop game, it's time. It is absolutely time, and I think Assemble is going to get my friends in the Gundam community into painting miniatures, into it, and looking at what other tabletop games are out there. And the same thing with my friends who are primarily in the GW or Battletech spheres. I think, if nothing else, people are going to be grabbing the minis and painting them and like, hey, if these rules are cool, then maybe I'll get into this. Painting this little tiny mini was fun. Maybe I'll grab not a perfect grade, a high grade, and try that out. I did like making models when I was a kid. So it's going to be, I think it has immense potential as a crossover and community building game. I'm just really hoping that the rules are good. Because it needs it. I don't know how popular these artifacts are from a retail standpoint, how well they sold. What kind of money were made here in the Western audience. I know even less about what's with the Asian audience. Um, and I lost my track of thought there. That's pretty common with me. I know you're lurking, Chris. It's true. But popularity of the models. There are, if the rules for the game are good, I can see a lot of people playing them because it looks like a very small model count game, relatively easy to get into from folks who are used to the GW ecosystem. It's a lot more like BattleTech to me from what little we've seen, what little official information we've had. I see it being a lot more like BattleTech, and that's easy to get into with an Alpha Strike box. You've got it all right there. And then once you've hooked them, once you get their first taste, they start buying all the models, all the minis. And for you folks coming back in the future watching this, if you would please tell me how many individual Gundam universe unit models there are, not models, units there are. So like the Zaku 3, the Rick Diaz, the Dom Tropin, etc. Those are all individual robots. How many miniatures could Bandai realistically make if they had a rule set and then made expansion packs for the minis? And let's just say is it 100, 200 various things? And that's a moneymaker right there for sure. Yeah. So everybody, cross your fingers, eyes, toes, and tongue. If you can cross your tongue, your partner is lucky. That the rule set is good and pulls people in. Because I'm tired of the tribalism. I'll be honest. I think that the whole my IP is better than your IP flexing is a load of crap. You enjoy your IP more. I enjoy this IP more. I like that other IP, but not as much as this IP. So maybe I like this is going to get me flames. Maybe I like Star Wars more than Star Trek, or maybe I like Star Trek more than Star Wars. They're both cool sci-fi. They have different messages, they have different audiences, and it's okay. I like 40K. The models are cool, the lore is cool. I like Battletech. The models are nifty, the lore is nifty. They're very, very different games, though. Have generally different audiences. I know there's a lot of crossover there, but still, and we're all people. We all like what we like. If I like Rocky Road and my friend likes chocolate with macadamia nuts, they're both chocolate ice cream with nuts in it. Tabletop gaming is tabletop gaming. Miniature painting is miniature painting. If you like it, you like it. Support each other. And this is why I say at the end of all of my videos, be good to each other. Because in the end, we're all in this tabletop thing together. And the more options we have, the better it is for everybody. And we will leave our video with that. I have been Phil, the miniature model maker. Today we did some scribing of the Rick Diaz, talked about using the stylus scriber before using the flat scriber. They have different uses, different benefits. Give it a try and see what works best for you. And then we did a quick little test of our 3M here, which in my eyes is a solid win. So thank you for watching. And remember, this is a hobby. If it's meant to bring you joy. If it doesn't, don't do it. And as always, be good to each other. Bye bye.